What's up, everybody? It's great to be back with you for this week's edition of By the Horns, presented by Toyota. You know that Toyota has more all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive vehicles than any other brand. So find yours and shine on. Toyota, let's go places. Got the sponsor out of the way last week. I didn't do that, 𝗪𝐶.
Come on,
just coming into what we discussed after that massive comeback win for the Bulls against the Sixers. So my emotions overtook me. So shout out to the people over at Toyota. Cam Smith with my man, Bulls insider Casey Johnson. And yeah, the vibes are different.
Yeah, they're a little different
this week, 𝗪𝐶. You know, it was all good just a week ago, like the great Jay-Z said in one of his songs, but it's a different run for this Bulls team now. They've lost 3 straight coming off of really tough opponents when you look at the Milwaukee Bucks last Friday, the Cavs on Saturday, and then last night, the San Antonio Spurs. And as we record this podcast, it's Tuesday, November 11th, and a couple of opportunities for this team to be 8-2.
Yep.
Now sitting at 6-4, 6th seed in the Eastern Conference.
And some similar themes in these losses, especially the last two with the fourth quarter offense drying up, but also, you know, the opponent just the main star taking over in the fourth. Giannis in Milwaukee, Donovan Mitchell in Cleveland, and now Victor making the United Center Court his own home. And, you know, the Bulls have talked pretty consistently about how they need to do this by committee. And, you know, that's a pretty good recipe to be in games and have some decent regular season success. Yeah. But when you see a star do what they've done in 3 straight fourth quarters, you're reminded the Bulls don't have that guy yet. I want to emphasize yet. Right. 𝗪𝗏 𝗪𝗧 could become that guy. Kobe White could become that guy.
Yes.
Matas Buzelis could become that guy, although we're going to get into Matas because he's got a little bit of ways to go.
Yeah.
Anyway, the point is there's some consistent themes, and I'm with you. You can always say, oh, they could have won that game. Last 2 games, they really could have, maybe even should have won those games.
Yeah, because when you have fans and they will look at this game like, oh, yeah, right, they should have won that game or they could have won that game. No, they were in position to win both of the last 2, which they dropped, especially when you look at what happened in Cleveland, something that we've obviously analyzed and, you know, highlighted numerous times, right? So we've discussed it, but just one of those things defensively where you have those breakdowns where you have 72 points scored in the first half and then you give up 72 in the second half to the Cavaliers. And you mentioned Donovan Mitchell, him wanting the ball, calling for the ball, and getting that ball in the fourth quarter and being Spider Mitchell. Like, that's what you expect from your guys that make the money. But then also last night with this Bulls team, led at half by 1, up 9 in the fourth. And then from the 9:58 mark of the fourth quarter on, it was all Victor Wembanyama, like 7'5", 7'6", 7'7", 7'8". We don't know his height. I don't know what his actual height is, but I don't think it's what he's listed as. So we'll just go for 7'5" for right now.
What I do know is his height is that 𝗏𝗏 𝗪𝗏 can have a pretty solid closeout, put his hand up at 6'11", and I'm not even sure Victor saw him. That's what. And I'm not. Those aren't my words. Those are Vooch's words. Vooch is like, I'm not even sure he sees me when I'm contesting like that. So got to tip your cap to that dude. He's a freak. But, yeah, it's disappointing that the offense has dried up. In the fourth quarter, in Cleveland, what I saw was them really kind of even struggling to get into sets and kind of they were kind of just being pressured up high. They never even got past like the 8-second. I think they got past the 8-second line, but they didn't get past like the timeline to like initiate, get into actions, get good movement.
Great point.
And in the home loss to the Spurs, I just saw them getting pretty decent looks and just not making them. Their shooting just dried up.
And this is something that Billy Donovan talked about, those 2 losses entering the San Antonio Spurs game against Milwaukee and the Cavs, where he wanted this team to really create penetration so they can get more attacks for this group and have more movement for them offensively, because we know that's one of the recipes for this Bulls team and how to get success is ball movement. And we saw that throughout the ball game against the San Antonio Spurs. But then also, just to your point, it dried up in that fourth quarter. Outscored 32-19, but also it's a cheat code when you have Wemby there, when you can have that dribble penetration, you get into the lane and you see a guy that's 7'5" waiting for you.
We asked that a lot post game, not only Billy but other players we talked to, just like how much of that looming threat kind of impacted. And Billy pushed back on it. He said we were getting paint touches.
Yeah.
You know, paint touches don't always mean throw it down to the post. It means, you know, dribbling into the paint. You know this. I'm just making sure everyone knows. Like,
you're just looking out for everybody.
That's a paint touch. Like, you just want to touch the paint, whether it's on a dribble, pass, whatever. And Billy said we were living in the paint and we were getting the right kickouts. We just didn't shoot the ball well in that fourth quarter. Disappointing because, man, they've been unbeaten at home too.
Yeah.
Had a chance to go 6-0 at the United Center. And, you know, last year they struggled so much at home with that 18-23 record. So obviously still a pretty good record, but missed opportunity for sure. And I know we're going to get into this later. It doesn't get much easier after this.
My gosh. The NBA gods and schedules and basketball gods, whatever sports gods you want to pray to or believe in, did not do the Bulls any favors with their schedule throughout the season, but also what we'll get into towards the end of this week's By the Horns. But, KC, we got to talk about Matas Buzelis.
Yeah.
And this is a guy, we keep reiterating this point. This is something that he said in Media Day where he wants to be most improved. He wants to be coached like an all-defensive guy. Basically, he wants to be held accountable. And I'm sure the coaching staff is doing that because he's struggled really on both ends. And my attention goes to the defensive end where
100%
go to Milwaukee, gets into foul trouble. Same thing in Cleveland. Obviously not in the rotation late last night against the San Antonio Spurs. And it's the ticky-tack fouls that I'm noticing with Matas, with how he's picking them up. On ball handlers where he's kind of reaching in, not really showing his hands. And I was talking about this with Kendall Gill in the green room over the weekend, watching that Cavs game where not really low enough in the stance to where naturally, this is a ball player, but for people that haven't played basketball, when you're in a defensive stance, naturally your arms will go out, right, and be able to guard guys. And Matas is kind of more standing up, maybe like a half bend, and so he's kind of reaching in, trying to get steals, and that's where guys are picking up on those things. And it feels like a lot of teams are using that in film studies, saying if you go attack this guy, he's going to reach in and foul you, so probably just stay strong with the basketball. So those little details for Matas, I'm sure that he knows and is really going to improve on, but it's been a struggle for a second year.
Yeah, we were talking about consistent themes in the fourth quarter with the offense. Well, another consistent theme is Matas Buzelis not being out there because he didn't play the final 11 minutes in Cleveland and he didn't play the final 7 minutes at home against the Spurs. And I was pulling up a quote because I want to make sure I get this quote right. We asked Billy, not in Cleveland, but in following the Spurs loss, why Matas wasn't out there to close. And here's his quote. He said, the two bigs out there and then having him to be in coverage, I think that was really challenging for him, quite honestly. We weren't switching. We had been switching earlier in the game with Barnes. And so the point is, like before, when Barnes is in there, they have the ability to switch. When they're playing those double bigs, which they played a lot of with Kornet and Wemby.
Yeah.
Matas just, we talked about how he's going to have increased defensive responsibility this year and increased physicality. He's had either 4 or 5 games in these first 10 where he's had 4 or more fouls.
Wow.
To your point.
A nugget. That's a nugget right there.
The reason I said 4 or 5 is because it was 4 going into last night. I don't have memorized. I forgot to look at the box how many he had last night. So it's either 4 or 5 in the first 10 where he's had 4 or more fouls.
Yeah.
So to your point, he's getting in foul trouble.
Yeah.
He's got this increased defensive responsibility, and he's struggling with the physicality point to it. And again, to your point, he said he wanted to be most improved player. He wanted to be coached like an all-defensive. Like, Matas has put this on himself. And we're not picking on the guy.
Right, yeah.
I mean, he just he knows when he's not playing to his standards and the coaching staff standards. But it's not a great sign when your future star and the guy that you're counting on to hit at a high level has not closed 2 games in a row. That's not a good thing.
Yeah, exactly. And you want to continue to have him in a position where mentally he has that confidence. And we know that Matas carries supreme confidence.
Totally.
So he's not going to lack in that. But it's just the details that he's getting used to. And this is his second year. We're not talking about a guy that's in his 5th or 10th year. Like, he's still growing and still is a 21-year-old. He just recently turned 21. What was it, last month, I believe?
Yeah.
So he's going to have his moments where he needs to grow. But not being in that lineup late is giving me a little bit of PTSD from last year. First half of the season with Matas when thrown into the fire defensively, and the Boston Celtics game was one of the bigger examples that a lot of people touched on in terms of just how he looked lost defensively. So it's great to have the offensive production. We saw that from Matas in Milwaukee where he had 20 points, started that game off really strong. His energy level, especially in the first half, Kendall Gill and I, we did the Bulls Countdown Live from Jake Melnick's because it was a Bulls Cup watch party. And we said to each other, like, Matas is how he's moving offensively. Either Billy and the coaching staff really laid into him and said, we need more energy and activity from you on the offensive end, and not just scoring the basketball, but how you rebound, how you run the floor, how you cut. But then also, I'm sure it was Matas saying, I have to really raise my profile and do more for this team. So it was something that we took notice of. You saw some of that last night, too. He was able to make some plays and finish with 15 points. But it's the defensive end, which 𝗪cie and I are really highlighting with Matas. Because, again, everything for this team. A lot of things have to go right because they do it by committee, but especially on the defensive end. If one person is not holding up their end, it really makes it tougher for the other 4 guys on the court.
To your point about his confidence level, got another quote for you because I talked to Matas yesterday morning at the shoot-around, and he said, I know there's going to be a learning curve, so I just got to bounce back. I'm very confident in myself. I know I'm going to struggle sometimes, but it's all about the next day. That's the right mentality you want, particularly for a young player. Now, this was said yesterday morning, so this is before the Spurs game. But he knew he didn't play well up in Cleveland, out in Cleveland, and he knew why he didn't play the last 11 minutes there because he was in foul trouble and struggling with physicality and matchups. So the quality you always hear about Matas beyond his confidence level is how he always looks inward.
Yeah.
And that's a great quality to have. So again, we're not like throwing the guy under the bus. We're saying these because of the expectations, not only for him from an organizational standpoint, but for the expectations he's created for himself.
Yeah, no doubt. And he's shown us too. And that's the thing. It would be another thing if we didn't just see Matas offensively, especially defensively, show what he can be. All right. If he wasn't showing it, then it's like, all right, we got to have another conversation with this. But he's shown it. He wants the smoke. He understands that he can be a better defensive player. So all in growth, right? It's a learning curve for him. Just year 2, right? Haven't reached 10 games yet into the season. So, but you'd rather have him get the lessons now and grow from that as opposed to this being an ongoing thing, which we don't expect or anticipate for Matas Buzelis.
No, and he, like you said, he's had some very good games already, and especially at the offensive end. And in the preseason, he was one of the best players on the team.
Yes, no doubt.
Early, we'll keep monitoring it, but you got to point it out when he doesn't close 2 games in a row.
Yeah.
That's just the reality of the business in the game.
All right, speaking of the last 2 games, on another side of it, off of the bench. I've been doing a theme on Bulls Countdown Live and more so on halftime and also post game. But whenever I'm serious about something, that kind of goes back to my childhood and maybe for a lot of people's childhood. When you get in trouble and your parents say your first, middle, and last name, for those that may have a middle name, it lets them know that they're serious and they mean business. And I mean business when I say this guy's name, Jalen Smith. This dude, last 2 games, averaging a double-double, KC, and he steps onto the court similar to Io and just gets right to work with what he does with his glass activity and also his scoring, too. And it's not just, as we know with Sticks, as a pick-and-pop guy, game lives on the perimeter, that's just what he is. But he's mixed it up and gotten inside and got some dunks and really some points at the rim.
So before we get into Jalen Smith, we got to Cameron, what Smith? Come on, man.
Gerard.
All right.
Cameron Gerard Smith.
Kenneth Carl Johnson.
Oh.
That was trouble, man. That was trouble. When you heard Kenneth Carl Johnson, it was over, man.
See, I always wonder what the KC
now
stood
you know.
for. Now I know. And again, I'm a rookie to Bulls pre and post, and KC and I obviously have worked together for close on a year now, and we've developed a really good relationship. But I was in the back of my head, I'm like, okay, when is the right time to ask KC what the K and C stands for in his name? Kenneth Carl. There we go.
It was over when it was Kenneth Carl. But back to Sticks and Jalen Smith. That was great.
Oh man.
But no, man. Like I think he had a double in like 9 minutes last night. And here's the crazy part: you have to go back to last season, and remember, he was playing at this level last season. Maybe not at this level, but he was consistent bench production, particularly scoring and stretch 5 and all that stuff.
Yeah.
He lost his job to injury. He got injured. The Zach LaVine trade happens. Zach Collins comes over.
Yep.
Billy likes himself some physicality, throws Zach Collins out there. Zach Collins starts balling out. You remember then Vooch got injured and Zach Collins was starting and playing like out of his mind as a starter.
Yeah.
Jalen Smith fell out of the rotation last year because of his injury. So, with Zach Collins set to come back from his injury.
Ooh, I see where you're going, KC.
I mean, it's a good problem to have.
It is. It really is.
Good problem to have. And maybe you'll see some double big lineups because all 3 of those guys have contributed. But you got to give Jalen Smith credit. I actually, if they'd won one of these last 2 games, I might have done a walk-off interview with him because, the way he's playing, you have to, acknowledge that. I don't think he's kind of got enough love because they haven't won, so I'm glad we're giving a little shine right here.
We got to give Jalen, for sure, give him his flowers on By the Horns because he deserves it, and also for someone that, as you mentioned, Casey, and I love that you brought up this point of how he was out of the rotation last year just due to injury, and shout out to Zach Collins because he took advantage of those minutes. But you can see the work that he put in from the all season. Same thing with �奧, same thing with a lot of guys on this Bulls team. And it's really coming to fruition for Jalen Smith. And he understands that, all right, I have a certain amount of time in this rotation on this court. I got to make sure that I make an impact. But it's not what I bring offensively, it's what I'm doing defensively as well. We've seen him get some blocks and, again, getting on the defensive glass. And for Billy Donovan, I'm sure that he's in his head saying, I know if I put sticks into the game, we're going to raise our profile and what we're doing and what our bench production is.
You've also seen him be one of the team leaders in trying to take charges. Now, he hasn't always got the whistle, but he's been on the floor a lot, having taken contact. He's gotten a couple charges, but he's also gotten called for a couple blocks, but he's in that mentality of where they need to take more charges. So he's played very well, very, very well. There's no getting around it.
Yeah.
And look, when Zach Collins comes back, he's going to have some rust to shake off. But you also have to go back to the preseason and how well Zach Collins was playing.
Yeah.
So, again, this is a good problem to have. I'm going to be really fascinated to see how Billy juggles this three big rotation. Can't play them all, or maybe he finds a way to try to. I think you will see some double big lineups.
Yeah.
Credit to Sticks. And what was that middle name that he had?
Rashid.
Okay.
Jalen Smith.
He did the research.
There you go, right there, man. Hey, man, I'm going deep into that thing when it comes to the full governments. But, yeah, shout out to Sticks. Continue play for them because they're going to need that production with how this schedule looks for this Bulls team, KC. I mean, they go to Detroit on tomorrow night as we record this podcast, or on Tuesday, November 11th. Pistons team is rolling.
7 straight.
𝗏 Cunningham, 46-point triple-double.
We got to get into that for a second.
Okay, let's do it.
No.
I think I know where you're going.
Okay, where am I going?
Shot attempts for Cade?
Because I've had like 3 people tell me that shouldn't count. Like, I'm like, the dude had a 46-point triple-double in a win.
Let's relax.
And people are saying it's a bad game because I will say it was pretty shocking seeing his shooting line. 14 for 45.
Yeah, 30 shots. You missed 30 shots to get the 40s. But, hey, 46 is 46.
Like, I've had 2 people text me like, I could have got triple-double if I took 45 shots.
No, you wouldn't have gotten a triple-double. You probably wouldn't even score if you took 45 shots in the NBA with NBA defense.
Okay, I'm glad we got that out of the way. But, yeah, 7 straight wins. 𝗏 Cunningham coming off a 46-point triple-double, albeit on 45 shots. And the Bulls got him earlier in the year. So
you got a lot of energy coming into Little Caesars Arena tomorrow night with this team because how they're playing, we know the level of physicality that Detroit is playing with as well, and they just have it put together. And Cade's on a mission. You just see it in his eyes. I know he went down with the tailbone injury. He fell on after a hard foul, so I'll be curious to see what his availability will be for tomorrow night. But he's a gamer, man.
Yeah.
You know that he remembers what happened with the season opener, so I wouldn't be surprised if he's not on if he's on the court.
Put you on the spot real quick, and I don't know the answer to this. I was listening to our the great 𝗏𝗏 ESPN. Love that dude. Their podcast, and he threw out there that 𝗏 Cunningham is the second best player in the Eastern Conference behind Giannis.
Ooh.
Now, he said you could obviously make a case for Donovan Mitchell, Jalen Brunson.
That's a good one.
He threw out another name that I'm forgetting. I don't know what the answer is, but the point I'm trying to make is, like, he might not be wrong. Like, 𝗏 Cunningham is in that conversation now. And it started last season with that ascension and that young team kind of on the rise. And everyone pointed to Orlando being the team. And Orlando's starting to figure some things out. Bane hit the game winner last night. Everyone's pointing to Orlando as a team that is going to kind of make the next jump. I think Detroit might be ready. And, again, when you got a leader like that with that positional size and that toughness, I think they've got a chance this year.
And also Jaden Ivey hasn't returned yet from his injury. So you add him into the fold. And it's a team that takes another step. So quickly to answer that, I don't think he's 2. I think he's 3 right behind Brunson.
Okay.
But I just feel like
So you got him over Mitchell?
I do have him over Mitchell.
Okay.
I do.
Because of his playmaking ability?
I think it's that part of it, but then also his leadership. And not to say that 𝗏𝗏 isn't a leader for the Cavaliers, but this Detroit team and just who they are and what they have, they're playing with a different type of energy and execution compared to what we've seen from Cleveland. Now, both teams are having success, and these are teams that we've seen so far in the early part of the season for the Bulls schedule. But also, it's how Detroit is taking that next step where, okay, was it a phantom mirage type season that they had last year. Okay, and you know how it is in the NBA, KC. Well, you had a good season last year. Prove it. Do it again next year. And Detroit is taking that step, led by Cunningham.
I just have always, before we turn this into a Pistons pod, I'll end it here. But I've always loved positional size. That's why I like Giddey. And Cade Cunningham is a legit big guard, man. He is legit 6'8".
KC, this is why KC's my guy, man. We're like connected mentally, and the nonverbals are perfect because you bring up Cade Cunningham's size and his height. When I saw him for the first time last year at the United Center warming up, I was a little intimidated.
Yeah.
Because I'm 6'1", you know, 6'1", still holding it down there. But when I stepped onto the court and I saw him warming up, I'm like, wait a minute, this dude is a full 6'8".
Yeah.
And you can see how he uses his body. Yeah, Giddey as well. And so that's another thing that took me back from just seeing how tall these guys are and how they utilize their size to get to their spots on the floor and to make plays for themselves or their teammates. So it's another task at hand for this Bulls team, and you know Detroit's not going to feel sorry for them coming into this matchup, and no one really is going to feel sorry for you because it's the NBA. But that's one of the next the next 10 games for this Bulls team where they have
8 on the road,
right? And it's the toughest schedule of any team in the NBA the Bulls have experienced so far this year, where their opponent's winning percentage is at .598.
That's insane. So think about that, people. The Bulls have played the toughest schedule to date. They're 6-4, and then their schedule gets pretty tough from here on out too. I mean, it's amazing that they've kind of navigated that stretch at 6-4 with a chance to have won 2 more to be 8-2 against the toughest schedule to this point in the NBA. Man, that's something.
Yeah, and we don't have Kobe White yet. Josh Giddey missing the past couple of games.
I'll assume missed some games. Zach Collins.
Yeah. So you add those pieces in, we're looking at a different Bulls.
Now, all teams have injuries. All teams go through it. But to have navigated this difficult of a schedule at 6-4 with really the internal belief that they should be 8-2 without your best offensive player and one of your most important defensive players in Zach Collins, man, that gives you some perspective. But they got to get those guys back, got to get them whole, and they got to start closing games better, no question.
All right, hopefully it starts tomorrow night against the Detroit Pistons, with the Bulls facing off against the Pistons for the second time in this early part of the season. Pistons-Bulls, we know that rivalry is there, and maybe it could be a chapter that's added to that book, but this Bulls team for sure has to close games, and that's hopefully what they get better at, and they grow from that. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the By the Horns podcast. For Kenneth Carl Johnson, I'm Cameron Gerard Smith. We'll see everybody soon. Take care.